14 days. That is how long the most consequential naval and air campaign since Desert Storm has been running. And on the morning of day 14, the U.S. Secretary of Defense stood before cameras and delivered a number that should have ended the conversation. Iran's missile volume was down 90%. Its drone volume was down 95%. Approximately 6,000 Iranian targets had been struck. More than 90 Iranian naval vessels, including over 30 mine-laying ships, had been damaged or destroyed. By any conventional metric, this is not a war that Iran is winning. And yet, as of this morning, the Strait of Hormuz remains functionally closed. 15 million barrels of crude per day are still stranded. Oil prices crossed $100 a barrel again overnight. And the question that no one in Washington, Riyadh, or Beijing can fully answer is the same one it has been since day one. What does an endgame actually look like? Because Iran does not need to win this war militarily. It only needs to survive it long enough to win it economically. And right now, it is doing exactly that. Let's go back to where the strategic picture crystallized. On March 10th, day 12, the U.S. Navy conducted a preemptive strike on Iranian mine layers in the Strait of Hormuz, destroying 16 vessels before Iran could cede the full minefield. The operation was fast, precise, and publicly released on video within hours. It was exactly the kind of kinetic clarity that briefing rooms are built for. But suppression is not elimination. Within 48 hours, CENTCOM confirmed that Iran retained significant residual mine-laying capability. More quietly, intelligence assessments noted that the real damage Iran had already done was not physical, it was financial. Maritime insurers had already suspended cover for Gulf operations. Supertanker war risk premiums had hit record levels. The mines that were never laid had already done their work. That is the architecture of Iranian asymmetric strategy. Every military action Iran takes serves a secondary economic purpose. Every intercepted drone that falls on a residential building in Kuwait, every ballistic missile that forces Saudi Arabia to scramble interceptors over its eastern region, every strike on a Dubai hotel. Each one is a premium added to every barrel of oil that moves through this region. Iran is not fighting the U.S. Navy. Iran is fighting the global energy market, and the global energy market is losing. Do you think the U.S. has a credible endgame here? Comment 1 if yes. Comment 2 if the political picture is still too unclear. Because what happened on day 13 and 14 suggests the answer matters more than it did last week. On March 12th, Iran's new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, issued his first public statement. Not in person and not on camera. A written message read aloud on Iranian state television. U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth called the format itself evidence that Khamenei is wounded, scared, and desperate. The State Department announced a $10 million reward for information on Khamenei and other senior Iranian figures, with relocation benefits included. This is not the posture of an adversary preparing a surrender. Khamenei's message contained 3 elements that matter operationally. First, attacks on Israel and U.S. military assets will continue. Second, the Strait of Hormuz will remain closed. Third, U.S. forces will continue to be targeted until their bases in the region are shut down. That third demand is not a negotiating position. It is a maximalist ultimatum designed to be rejected, which means Iran is not negotiating. Iran is signaling that it intends to continue. Meanwhile, the Iranian president outlined 3 conditions for ending the war: recognition of Iran's sovereign rights, payment of reparations, and firm international guarantees against future aggression. No administration, Republican or Democratic, can meet those terms publicly. Which means the diplomatic off-ramp that every G7 finance minister is privately hoping for does not currently exist. What has changed militarily in the last 72 hours is significant, and not entirely in Iran's favor. The degradation of its conventional strike capability is real. Israeli strikes continued into Friday night, targeting Iranian security checkpoints in Tehran, government buildings, and weapons storage sites. Explosions were reported near a major public rally in central Tehran. U.S. strikes have now hit every military target on Karg Island, Iran's primary oil export terminal, with Trump threatening its civilian infrastructure if Iran continues blocking the strait. That threat carries enormous stakes. Karg Island handles roughly 90% of Iran's oil exports. Striking its infrastructure would not just cripple Iranian revenue, it would add another shock to an already fractured global energy market. The economic blowback would be felt in Delhi, Beijing, and Berlin before it was felt in Tehran. In the meantime, the U.S. is escalating its physical presence. The Pentagon is deploying a Marine Expeditionary Unit of approximately 2,200 personnel from Okinawa to the Middle East. Their mission is described officially as support for ongoing operations and potential evacuation contingencies. Unofficially, a Marine Expeditionary Unit is a self-contained amphibious assault force. Its presence changes the calculus for any coastal operation, including any scenario involving physical seizure or neutralization of Iranian port infrastructure. The human and financial costs of this war are now becoming politically visible in Washington. The first 6 days of the conflict cost the U.S. military more than $11.3 billion, a figure delivered to lawmakers in a classified Pentagon briefing that leaked almost immediately. 13 U.S. service members have been killed. 6 of them died on Thursday, when a U.S. Air Force refueling aircraft crashed in western Iraq in a non-combat incident. The aircraft had no ejection systems and no parachutes, leaving the crew no survivable exit. More than 250 American organizations have now signed a letter calling on Congress to halt funding. A key Senate committee chairman is planning the first open public oversight hearing. The political scaffolding of this operation is beginning to strain in ways that purely military assessments do not capture. On day 14, when a reporter asked President Trump when the war would be over, he said he would know when I feel it in my bones. That answer, from a commander-in-chief known for precision when precision serves him, suggests that no clearly defined end state has been articulated, even internally. Senator Lindsey Graham, one of the war's strongest Republican supporters, said on Thursday, "I don't see this conflict ending today." Here is the strategic reality as of March 14th. Iran's conventional military has been significantly degraded. Its missile and drone capacity is a fraction of what it was 2 weeks ago. Its top leadership is dead, wounded, or in hiding. Its naval surface capability has been gutted. And yet, the Strait of Hormuz is still closed. Iranian forces are still striking Gulf states, hitting Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, the UAE. Dubai International Airport has been struck. AWS data centers in the UAE are offline. Lebanon is re-escalating. 16 oil tankers and cargo ships have been attacked. An Iranian source told CNN that Tehran is mulling conditions for permitting tanker passage, including requiring trade to be settled in Chinese yuan rather than US dollars. That demand, if true, is not a ceasefire term. It is a geopolitical restructuring demand embedded inside a maritime negotiation. The war is now in its second phase. The first phase was kinetic dominance, and the US and Israel achieved it. The second phase is strategic endurance. The question is not which side has more munitions. The question is which side has more political runway. And that question has not yet been answered. Iran does not need to close the strait forever. It only needs to keep it uncertain long enough for markets to price in permanent risk, long enough for global pressure to build on Washington, long enough for the political coalition supporting this war to fracture at the margins. That is not a military strategy. That is a time strategy. And time, right now, is still in play. If you think the US has a move that ends this before the economic cost becomes politically irreversible, tell us in the comments. And if this breakdown showed you something the 24-hour news cycle buried, subscribe, because day 15 has already started, and the file is still open.